It was just past midnight when he first saw her curled up beside a dented trash bin behind the corner of a closed flower shop. The moon hung low, heavy in the sky, like it, too, had something to mourn. She was shivering, though the night wasn't cold, wrapped in nothing but silence and shadows. Her hair fell over her face like a curtain, hiding more than just her features. He almost walked past her. Almost, but something he couldn't explain what made him stop. For a long moment he didn't move. He just looked at her. There was no sound except the distant hum of traffic and the whisper of leaves brushing the sidewalk. Then her hand shifted barely. A slow, weary motion, as if even dreaming took effort. She was holding something small, tightly gripped. It looked like a necklace. A tarnished, broken locket, its chain knotted around her fingers like a secret too painful to let go of. He didn't know her name. Didn't know where she came from or why she looked like the world had forgotten her. But something about that moment, her stillness, her hidden face, the way she seemed to be both here and far away, hit him in a place he hadn't let anyone touch in years. There's a kind of gaze that doesn't need words. The kind that tells you everything without sound. When she opened her eyes just enough to see him, it was like the weight of her story passed to him in a single look. Her eyes didn't beg for help, they were past that. They just asked, "Are you going to walk away too?" He didn't answer her out loud. Not then. Some people believe in fate. Some in coincidence. But others believe that the universe whispers in moments like these, when the unlikely happens in the quiet, in the dark, where no one else is watching. He wasn't looking for anything that night. Just walking. Just breathing. But standing there, he felt something shift. Like the beginning of something he wasn't ready for but couldn't ignore. That broken locket would show up again later, long after the rain, long after the first time she laughed again. But right now, it was just a mystery clutched in a stranger's hand. A stranger who, in some strange way, already felt familiar. What makes someone stop for another human being? What makes a person see beyond the dirt and the fear and the silence? Is it love? Is it guilt? Or is it something we've forgotten how to name? This isn't a love story. At least not in the way you think. It's about two people who found each other at rock bottom, who didn't know they were each other's mirror, and who, on a night that could have been nothing, stepped into everything. But that comes later. Right now, all you need to know is he didn't walk away. He didn't say a word as he slowly crouched beside her. The city around them moved on, cars rushing by, lights flickering in apartment windows, somewhere a song playing softly through a second-floor window. But in that tiny alley, time felt like it had stopped. She turned her face slightly away from him, not in fear, but in something sadder, resignation. Like she'd already decided no one would care enough to stay. He noticed then that the locket in her hand wasn't just broken, it was stained. Faded. Like it had been opened and closed too many times by someone hoping to feel something that had long slipped away. He didn't ask about it, but something about the way her fingers tightened around it, even in sleep, told him it mattered. A lot. She didn't speak for hours. Not until the sky started turning that soft, tired gray that comes right before dawn. He had sat nearby the whole night, leaning against the brick wall, not looking at her too much, just being there. He remembered the way his mother used to sit at the edge of his bed when he couldn't sleep as a kid, not saying anything, just being present. He hadn't thought of that memory in years. When she finally did speak, her voice was small, croaky from sleep and something older. "You don't have to stay," she whispered. "I know," he said. "I want to." She didn't believe him. He could tell. But she didn't argue either. Later, he would learn about the hospital. The one with the white walls and the smell of bleach and loneliness. He would learn about the phone call that never came. About the night she sat in a motel room staring at the locket for so long it felt like it might start speaking back. But for now, all he saw was a girl who looked like she hadn't been touched by kindness in a long time. Maybe ever. The flashback came to him without warning of when he'd lost his brother. The last words they spoke had been an argument. Something stupid about borrowed money. He remembered the guilt, how it settled in his bones and never quite left. And how ever since then he'd been walking through life like he was just borrowing time. That locket. It was more than jewelry. It was her anchor. A photo lived inside, though he wouldn't see it yet. A little boy's smile and a date scratched in messy handwriting. People carry ghosts in all kinds of ways. He offered her half of a granola bar he found in his coat pocket. She took it, finally sitting up. The wall left a red imprint on her cheek. She didn't say thank you, but she looked at him for a long second, like she was still deciding whether or not to believe he was real. "Do you think people ever really change?" she asked, out of nowhere. He didn't answer right away. He thought about it. Really thought. "I think people break. And sometimes they rebuild. But it never looks the same." She looked away and he knew she was hiding tears. Or maybe trying to hold on to the last bit of control she had. Somewhere deep down he was terrified. Not of her, but of what this might mean. Of how one night might change everything. Of how something inside him was already waking up, something that hadn't stirred since the funeral. Maybe he wasn't saving her. Maybe she was saving him. Sometimes you meet someone and it doesn't feel new. It feels like remembering. Like finding something you didn't even know you lost. And still, neither of them knew the hardest part was yet to come. It started raining the next night. Not a soft, cleansing rain, but heavy, impatient, like the sky had finally had enough of holding it in. They were sitting on the back steps of an abandoned community center, the kind with boarded windows and cracked paint. She had barely spoken all day. He didn't push her. He could feel something tightening in her, like a wire pulled too long. He offered her his jacket when the rain picked up. She didn't take it, just stared out at the empty street like it was going to give her answers. Her clothes were damp, her hands curled into her sleeves. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest. "You don't have to stay," she said again, softer this time. "You said that yesterday. I mean it today." He turned toward her, frustrated, not at her, but at how impossible it was to reach someone who'd already decided they weren't worth saving. "So what, I'm just supposed to walk away? Pretend I didn't find you like that?" "You didn't find me," she snapped. "I was already lost." That stopped him. Not because it hurt, but because he understood it too well. For a long time after his brother died, he tried to carry on like everything was fine. He worked, smiled when people asked, made excuses for why he stopped coming to family dinners. But inside he was hollow. And the worst part? No one noticed. Grief didn't make him loud. It made him disappear. Now he was looking at someone else doing the same thing. She finally opened the locket that night, sitting in the rain, her fingers trembling. She didn't hand it to him, just held it open on her lap. "My little brother," she whispered. "Drowned. I was supposed to be watching him." The words hung between them, heavier than the rain. She didn't cry. It was past crying. It was something deeper, guilt soaked into the skin, into the soul. The kind of guilt that rewrites who you think you are. "I thought if I kept this," she said, gently brushing the edge of the photo with her thumb, "he'd forgive me." He wanted to say something. Anything. But what do you say to someone who's been living with that kind of pain alone? "You see him when you look at me, don't you?" she said suddenly, not looking up. He didn't answer because she was right. She wasn't just a stranger anymore, she was a mirror. A reflection of everything he tried to bury. They were both carrying ghosts. Different names, same weight. And still, the world moved on. Around them, car horns echoed through wet streets. Streetlights flickered over puddles. A cat scurried under a dumpster. Life kept living even when people felt like they weren't. He realized something that night: saving someone wasn't always about fixing them. Sometimes it was just about not leaving. But he also knew he couldn't force her to want help. That was the hardest part. Wanting to give someone your strength when they don't even think they deserve it. She looked at him, finally, her eyes red but clear. "If you stay, you'll see the worst parts of me." "Maybe," he said, "but I think I've already seen the bravest." Inside the broken building behind them, water dripped from a hole in the ceiling. A single flickering bulb swung back and forth in the hallway. It smelled like mildew and forgotten things. But for now it was shelter. And maybe in some broken way that was enough. But neither of them saw the man watching from across the street. And neither of them knew the past wasn't done with them yet. The rain had stopped by morning, but the streets still wore the night like a bruise. Gray clouds lingered low, dragging the light down with them. He hadn't slept. She had barely curled up beside a cold radiator inside the abandoned center. He watched her breathe, slow and steady, as if the act itself took everything she had left. They didn't know it, but the man who had watched them the night before had returned. Standing beneath the broken awning of a pawn shop across the street, hidden in plain sight. His hands were deep in his pockets, but his eyes never left her. She stirred, her eyes blinking open like waking up was a battle. "Why are you still here?" she asked, her voice dry. "Because you're still here," he said. She sat up slowly, her hair a mess, her face pale but calm. "You don't get it. I'm not some lost girl who needs a savior. I'm a storm. I ruin things." "No," he said. "You survived the storm." "That's not the same thing." She shook her head, her throat tightening. "You don't know what I've done." He moved closer, quietly. "Then tell me." Silence stretched. The air between them held its breath. She finally opened the locket again and handed it to him. For the first time. Inside was the photo of a little boy with a wide smile and eyes just like hers. And beside it, folded like a secret, a note. Childlike writing. Just one line. "Don't go too far this time." Her voice trembled. "He used to follow me everywhere. That day. I just needed space. 10 minutes, I told myself. 10 minutes of quiet." She paused. He never came back. He looked at the photo, then at her. The guilt in her voice was a knife. "It wasn't your fault. But it feels like it was," she whispered. "Every day since." He wanted to hold her then, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the sound outside, the scrape of footsteps, too slow to be random. He looked toward the door. She noticed the shift in his eyes. "What?" "We're not alone." Before she could speak again, the door creaked. The man stepped in, soaked boots leaving shadows on the tile. He looked rough, older, eyes sharp with recognition. She froze. Her voice was barely a breath. "Dad?" The room dropped into silence. Thick. Charged. He hadn't seen her since the funeral. Not at the hospital. Not at court. Not even at the grave. Just vanished, leaving her to drown alone. Now he stood there like he had a right to. "I came to bring you home," he said. She laughed, bitter and broken. Home. The word hung there. Sharp. Mocking. "There's no home left," she said, standing. "You made sure of that." The man's face darkened. "You've got no one else." She looked at the boy beside her, the stranger who'd stayed through the storm. "Yes, I do." Somewhere outside, the wind picked up, rattling the boarded windows. Something was coming. Not just from him, from everything they'd been running from. The room felt too small for all the truths waiting to explode. And in that charged quiet, the world waited to see who would break first. The air was thick with everything unspoken. Her father didn't move closer, but his presence filled the space like smoke, choking, heavy, familiar in the worst way. She hadn't said his name in years. Now it came out of her like a wound. "Eric." "Not Dad." The boy beside her looked from one to the other, suddenly realizing this wasn't the reunion it looked like. Eric's jaw twitched, the kind of twitch that always came before shouting, or worse. But he didn't yell. He just looked at her with a strange calm. That's when it clicked. "You didn't come for me," she said, voice trembling. "You came for the locket." Eric's silence said more than any denial ever could. She backed up a step. "You sold it, didn't you? After he died." His eyes flicked toward the locket now in the boy's hand. The air cracked. "That locket belonged to your mother," Eric said. "It wasn't yours to take." She gave it to him, she fired back. "And I took it because it's all I had left of both of them." The boy looked down at the locket like he was holding a lit fuse. Then came the twist. Eric's voice was low. "That note inside. You think he wrote it for you?" "He wrote that for me." The room stilled. A cold wind blew through the cracks in the boarded windows, whispering through the dust like a ghost. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "He followed me that day," Eric said. You didn't lose him. I did. Time folded in on itself. Her knees buckled slightly, but she didn't fall. Her breath came in broken pieces. The guilt that had shaped her entire life suddenly cracked. Tilted. He drowned trying to catch up to you? Eric didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation. And then, like a dam breaking, it all came rushing in. The funeral. The blame. The way he disappeared. The silence that followed. He'd let her carry it. Let her believe it. She stepped toward him, fury and grief swirling behind her eyes. You let me hate myself. You were strong enough to survive it, he muttered, as if that made it better. No, she said, her voice rising. I wasn't. I'm still not. The boy stepped between them now, not with force, but with presence. His eyes held hers. You've been carrying a weight that was never yours. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Her fingers moved slowly to the locket. She opened it one more time. The photo. The note. Don't go too far this time. It didn't just sound different now. It meant something else entirely. A message not from her brother to her, but a plea to the man who kept running from truth, from loss, from himself. Eric reached for the locket. She snapped it shut and stepped back. You don't get this. You don't get him. There was no yelling. No fight. Just a silence that cracked something open in her. This was the point of no return. Not because of Eric, but because of what she finally saw herself. Not broken. Not cursed. Just human. Grieving. Awake. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Something coming. Maybe for Eric. Maybe for the past. The boy touched her shoulder. She didn't flinch this time. And in the space between who they were and who they were becoming, the truth settled like dust in sunlight, sharp, unforgiving, but finally seen. She didn't hand the locket back. Instead, she pressed it to her chest, like maybe for the first time she knew exactly who it belonged to, not just her brother, not just her past, but her. Not as a curse, not as a wound, but as proof. That she had loved. That she had survived. Eric took another step forward, but the boy stopped him with a look that said more than any threat ever could. Not fear. Not hate. Just truth. The kind that leaves no room for denial. You let a child carry your guilt, he said quietly, voice steady. And she still found a way to carry her heart, too. Eric opened his mouth, but nothing came. Just the sound of sirens, closer now, painting red and blue shadows across the ruined walls. Someone must have called. Maybe someone saw the way he entered. Maybe the universe decided it had seen enough. She turned to the boy. Go, she said softly. If they take him in, you don't need to be part of it. I'm not leaving you. You already did what no one else did, she said. You stayed. But before either of them could move, Eric's voice cut in one last time, desperate now. You want the truth? I saw him fall in. I froze. I didn't jump in. I was scared. And just like that she broke. Not in anger. Not in rage. But in forgiveness. I know, she whispered, tears finally falling. I've been scared every day since. The sirens stopped outside. Flashlights pierced the cracks in the windows. Doors slammed. Footsteps. She looked at Eric one last time. Not as the villain. Not as the father. Just a man who failed and never knew how to fix it. I forgive you, she said. Then she turned to the boy, pulled the locket from around her neck, and pressed it into his hand. You keep it now, she said. Not because it's broken, but because it isn't. He stared at it, stunned. Why me? Because you saw me, she said. And when someone sees you, really sees you, you don't go back to being invisible. Outside, the door burst open. Flashlights washed over them. Voices shouted. But it was already over. She stepped forward, hands raised, not for protection, but peace. Eric followed. Slowly. Surrendered without a word. Later, the boy would tell people the story started when he found her sleeping next to a trash bin. But that was a lie. The story started after. When the broken locket found a new home. When a girl who thought she was lost found herself instead. When a storm passed and the sky didn't fall but opened. And long after the world moved on, he would still remember the way she looked at him that morning. like he had changed her life just by staying. Maybe we don't save each other the way we think we do. Maybe we just stand still long enough for the truth to catch up. And maybe, just maybe, some people are meant to be found exactly where the world forgets to look. It was quiet after. The kind of quiet that follows a storm. Not because nothing remains, but because something finally has space to breathe. The street outside was still slick from the rain, glistening in the early morning light like the world had been washed clean. She stood on the sidewalk, watching them load Eric into the back of the squad car. He didn't fight it, didn't even look back. For the first time in years, she wasn't trying to rewrite what happened. She was just letting it be what it was, a truth that hurt but no longer owned her. The boy stood beside her, hands in his pockets, the locket now hanging from his neck. He hadn't said much since the officers left, just followed her out into the morning like silence was part of the deal. But it wasn't the heavy kind anymore. It was shared. Soft. "You okay?" he asked, not because he needed an answer, but because he meant it. She nodded, wiping under her eyes. "I think so. It's strange." "What is?" "I always thought healing would feel like some big moment. Fireworks or something," she said, glancing up at the sky. "But it's just quiet." He smiled a little. "Sometimes the loudest things don't need sound." They walked for a while, not toward anything in particular. Just forward, past buildings that looked tired, past a stray cat curled under a bench, past a mural of a child blowing dandelions painted over a crumbling wall. Each step felt like shedding something invisible. Not forgetting, but no longer dragging it. They stopped at a small diner just as the sun cracked open the horizon. She hadn't eaten in days. He ordered pancakes. She just wanted coffee. The waitress didn't ask questions, just poured and smiled like maybe she knew. She toyed with a sugar packet between her fingers. "Do you ever feel like some people come into your life just to hold up a mirror?" He looked at her, quiet. "I think you held up mine." Outside, the light was golden now, catching the window just right. The locket sparkled where it rested against his chest. He touched it once, absent-mindedly, like it had become part of him. A reminder of what mattered. A reminder that being someone's turning point doesn't always come with applause. It comes with presence. They sat like that, in the warmth of the moment. Two people who had been strangers just days ago, now bonded by the kind of truth that doesn't leave bruises. It leaves roots. Eventually, he spoke. "What happens now?" She didn't answer right away, just looked out the window where the world was waking up. A girl with a backpack skipped by. A man lit a cigarette. Life, unbothered, unfolding. "I don't know," she said finally, "but I think I'm ready to find out." And maybe that was the answer all along, not knowing everything, not tying every thread, but choosing to keep going, even with the jagged edges. Before they left, she wrote something on a napkin, folded it, gave it to him. Later, when he opened it alone, it said only this: "You found me where I thought I'd been forgotten. And somehow you made it sacred." He kept it tucked in the same pocket where the locket had once been. Not because he needed a souvenir, but because some moments change you and you don't always see it until you're somewhere quiet looking back. And maybe that's what stories like this do. Not end. Not really. They echo. Just enough to make someone pause and maybe ask themselves, who did I walk past today and what were they carrying?